Welcome to the Body Talk podcast. I am your confidence coach, Tabitha Sweeney. Next to me is boudoir photographer Jill Barrile. Together, we are building an empire rebelling against diet culture and the insecurity that it creates among women. This show is raw, real, and vulnerable, showcasing all things related to body, confidence, self-worth, and the power you are about to step into, if you choose. Hello, lovies. How are we doing today? It's Tab here, and today I am with Yesenia Godoy, and she is an intuitive eating coach and one of the co-founders of the program, the Embodied Wellness Movement. Welcome. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. All right. So tell us all, you are an intuitive eating coach now, but
Yes.
your journey actually started in fitness.
Yes, it started as a weight loss coach.
Ooh.
So I used to count macros
Yep.
and lift weights. And then that was a hobby. And then I started helping people with it. And that's when I started my business in 2017. And I helped people lose weight by counting macros and then lifting weights. So
Okay.
at some point, I realized that was consuming a lot of not only my time, but my energy, my headspace. It was during the pandemic. I was reevaluating my entire life. And that was when, yes, that's very true. And at some point, that became one of the focuses of that I started reevaluating. And I thought to myself, what am I doing? Why am I tracking and weighing every morsel of food that goes into my mouth? And why, why?
Yeah.
I don't need to be doing this. And I stopped. And I started eating intuitively. It was very, very scary because after a decade of dieting, I had really been led to believe that when I wasn't tracking, I was going to be out of control with food.
Yep.
And it was almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Every time I stopped tracking, I would be out of control with food. I'd be like, oh no, I need to go back. And I would. And then I would go back to tracking. And then I would get tired of it again and try again. And it was like a cycle. I mean, at some points, I was binge eating. At other points, I was just very rigid. So it would be very stressful to do things like go over to a cookout because I didn't know what they were cooking. I didn't know what the calories were, what the macros were in those foods. I didn't know how they were going to fit into my diet. And now I know a lot of the things that I did were disordered eating, but like I wouldn't eat most of the day, or I would eat very little to save up calories. And and so I had a very disordered relationship with food, but I didn't really know it because it was so normalized.
It is so normalized. And I think that is the sad thing, right? Like, it's not normal for your thoughts about food to consume your life day in and day out and dictate whether or not you are going to go to happy hour or to the party and yet, yeah, it does it I get it. um and I think it's because we have similar journeys in that aspect. I also started in fitness and for a long time focused on weight loss, and then after I had kids was when I realized that, like, wow, our this is not a system built for moms, and the advice we're giving is not, it makes me want to punch you, not do something. Like, So I feel like, and it's right, like it's that is what's so normalized that then when you make the switch, it's almost hard for people to even understand that you can still be healthy.
Yeah.
Right.
And actually, you're even healthier because your thoughts are not consumed by food, what you're going to eat, what you're not going to eat. That's a lot of it too. And then also, one really neat thing that happened, and it's really common, it is definitely studied in the literature, is when you're more like food focused, you're also more body focused.
Oh
Because
yeah.
the purpose of being so focused on food for me was never health. And it isn't for a lot of us. It was to control my body, to stay or get to a size that I felt was acceptable.
Yeah. And that's pretty much that size is where you kept your worth. And if you went outside of that size, you were no longer worthy because we keep all of our worth in this one pair of jeans, right? Like it doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, I would weigh myself every single day. I had data for years of what my weight was doing. I quit that too. And it was liberating. I mean, it was scary and it took time. And
Yeah.
I did have thoughts of like, oh, maybe this isn't working out. Maybe I need to go back. Maybe, maybe intuitive eating isn't for me. And so I think because of the society we live in, it's not dieting, eating more intuitively, and it's a daily choice we have to make.
100%. 100%. It is a daily choice. What are your thoughts now that you've made this switch and you've been on both sides in the online space of Pinterest and TikTok and all of this fitspiration? What is your takeaway on all that? Like, what are the feelings it brings up when you see these memes and these posts?
Um, Anger,
Yeah.
rage, because now I'm hyper aware of diet culture messaging.
Mhm.
I I realize it's everywhere. It's in gym advertisements. It's on your food packaging. It's on, like one of my favorite popcorns is has a dumb name, and I always when if I post about it, I always say great popcorn, dumb name. It's called skinny popcorn or something like that.
Yep.
Um, and a lot of the mentality, like in the fitness community, is like no pain, no gain. Like
Yeah.
don't miss a Monday. Don't skip a workout. You'll never regret um, a workout.
Yep.
And it's like it makes me angry because it's so deeply embedded in our culture that we all think it's normal. I talked to someone recently, and she was saying how her daughter had some, concerns about her body image. And then her next comment was, but it's because she's a girl. And I don't want that. I don't want that for us, for the next generation, because dieting, diet culture, trying to keep ourselves small, losing weight, it's a distraction. It's a distraction to keep us small, to keep us compliant, to keep
Yes.
us, it keeps us from fulfilling, doing things that are fulfilling, from figuring out our true purpose in life. Because if we're, 12 hours of my day are consumed planning what I'm eating, what I'm not eating, how do I have time to figure out who my true self is? And I think just it's the distraction. And that's what
Yes.
I realize now.
You know, and I think you just hit the nail on the head, because I have said it multiple times and I will say it over and over again. The most terrifying idea to the patriarchal society that we live in would be if every woman woke up confident in feeling whole. I mean, it would crumble this society, because our society is built off of women not feeling good enough.
It is.
And
And
when
even
you,
the most successful people have these all consuming thoughts about food and their body and dislike, and it stops a lot of people from doing things in their life, like building relationships, you know, engaging in movement that they would, find very beneficial for their mental health. It keeps them from trying out for, that promotion. It
yeah,
keeps them from dating. It keeps them from going on that trip because of concern about the clothes. It just
it keeps them
limits
from
our
living.
possibilities. Yes, it keeps us from living exactly. And so it just makes me really angry that that is the messaging we get at a very young age. It makes me angry that, oh, another thing, ideal bodies change like every decade. Whenever I was in high school, the ideal body was get as thin as you can.
Yep,
You went to the store and the racks were filled with tiny, tiny pants.
yep.
And then at some point it was like, you need to have, a big butt and a little waist. And now they're objectifying the quote unquote fit woman, whatever that means.
Yep.
And that's the goal. But you can't be too muscular, but you have to still be lean. But we want you to look toned. And it's just, I mean, the ideal body changes like women's fashion changes. Like, it's ridiculous because when are we going to fit those ideals?
Well,
I never fit any of those ideals I just described.
and I
Never.
feel like that's the truth, though, because it's like, even the ideals are cherry picking. We'll take Kim K's, waist and J Lo's butt, and we'll take, Jennifer Aniston's long hair, and we'll take that. It's still not a person.
That's
Like,
true. And
it's
it's not realistic. We're all different. We're meant to be different. We're built different.
and most, and not, I shouldn't say most, some of the names that I had just mentioned who were cherry picked, they're not even in their original skin.
That's
Like,
true
they
too.
have been altered more than once.
So, in terms of like cosmetics, like we have to stay looking young. We can't have gray hair. We can't have wrinkles. We can't be above whatever weight or size society has dictated. Like, it's a natural part of aging. We're gonna get wrinkles. We're gonna get gray hair. Our skin. We're not gonna stay young forever. Like, that's unrealistic. And the amount of, and it goes back to that, to our worth, tying our worth to our appearance. And that's not something that we came up with. I didn't wake up and say, wow, I would really like to tie my worth to something I can't really control. Like, no.
But we start taking in that messaging before we can even talk.
Yep.
Because, and I don't know that I believed it necessarily until I was at like my son's 18-month checkup, and the doctor went to talk about his BMI. And I literally just put my hand up. I was like, whoa, this is not a conversation we're going to have. Because if I bring him back in 2 weeks, he's going to grow. But first of all, we all know that BMI is a debunked, it's not science. I refuse to even say it's debunked science. It's not science.
BMI is BS, and
Yes.
it was never intended to measure individual health.
Nope.
And not only that, but people who tend to be higher on the BMI actually tend to be healthier than those that are like lower. And at some point, they decided to change the guidelines, and then there was no good reason why they changed the guidelines, and all of a sudden, people who were normal were now overweight, and now they
Yep.
were charged maybe higher insurance premiums or sold
Well,
weight loss things.
so again, we go back to I'm always fascinated by you can follow the money. So there was no good reason except for to the companies who lobbied to change the standards, which were already unrealistic because, again, it wasn't based on science. So the fact that like doctors are still using this, like, makes me so angry I could spit. And the doctor started talking about my son, and I was like, whoa, whoa, we are not discussing his BMI or his weight. He can't talk yet. And this is already being right. So like it's being absorbed by babies the day they're born.
Yeah,
And we don't give it a second thought.
it's true. And I mean, I think that even if we don't tell kids, like, you need to be in this body, you need to be a little weight, even if we're not directly directing these things, it's they notice everything. So if we're nitpicking our bodies, if
Oh yeah.
we're concerned about the clothes we're wearing, if we're dieting, they know. Then they learn that being in their bodies that are natural, their natural weight is not okay.
Right.
And so they learn by example, they learn from being told, they learn it's just so many different avenues, and then it's reinforced by media. So not just social media, but
Yes.
television, um, just
Just the regular out there media and everyday messaging, and there is the blatant messaging, but then there's also the very, very subtle messaging that until you really become aware of diet culture is missed in so many ways.
it is.
And oh, so you found the journey of intuitive eating.
So let me back up a little bit.
Okay.
So about 4 years prior to the pandemic, I read the original intuitive eating book.
Okay.
I read it from cover to cover. I highlighted a few things, and my final thoughts when I finished that book were that sounds great for them. Intuitive eating wouldn't work for me. If I ate intuitively, I wouldn't stop eating. I now realize that that was true because I was so deprived and restricted that I was not in tune with my hunger and fullness signals. I was not in tune with my body. So there's, I was not making choices for myself in other areas of my life. So I wasn't intuitively living. I was just going with the flow and doing what I thought I should do. And that led me to be very, very unhappy. And that culminated in a very difficult time during the pandemic where I was at the lowest point of my life in terms of what am I doing with my life? It was a crisis for me, like not just in this area, but overall. And now looking back on it, I realize it was because I was listening to outside things about what I should do for my career, what I studied, what even what I ate, what I wore, what workouts I did. It was all dictated by this external influence. I looked to my fitness pal to tell me what to eat, how many calories to eat, how much protein to eat. I looked to was always looking for the perfect workout program to pair, to manipulate my body to look more this or more that. And when I let go of that, and I'm still working on it. I can't say that I've achieved a destination, but when I started letting go of all of that, I quit my job, I quit my 9 to 5 to focus on my business because it was what was fulfilling for me. My 9 to 5 was not fulfilling work for me. Coaching clients is what is most fulfilling for me. It's what makes me happy, and it also it's what I'm strong in. I like to get to know people. I like to help people. But when I let go of all those external expectations and started tuning into myself,
Mm-hmm.
I am just the happiest I've ever been. My mental health is the best it's ever been.
Good.
And it all has to do with living more authentically, being more true to myself, and listening to my intuition. Not just with eating, but with what I wanted to do for my career, with picking my friendships, with
Ah,
where I wanted to live, with everything. It just was a complete and total transformation for me.
that's incredible. And I think it's a transformation that we all deserve. It makes me so sad when I think that there are people, especially women out there, who will never experience that. And that is devastating to me.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So what is something you would tell somebody who's toying with this idea of trying intuitive eating?
I would say start tuning into your needs because a lot of the so like my binge eating, um, a lot of the control I wanted, a lot of the roles I had were me not tuning into my needs, me looking for some kind of external validation for how to make those choices. And so I think that's the biggest thing. And oftentimes people think, oh, intuitive eating, eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full. Not really. So yes, but that's not all of it.
Right.
Because oftentimes when we've dieted for so long, those hunger and fullness signals are blunted. And
Yeah.
so it's going to be a very frustrating process if that's where we want to start. So a more gentle approach would be to start tuning into your needs, asking yourself, what do you need? And then listening. And then your body will start trusting you enough when you start listening and taking action on it. So, an example of this, something I also struggle with that I know many people struggle with, is resting.
Mhm.
So, for so long, I felt like I had to be productive every minute of every day, and I didn't rest. I didn't know how to rest. I prided myself in working a lot of hours.
Yeah.
And so tuning in could be as simple as what do I need right now? And you get up from your desk and go stretch. Or maybe you need to talk to a friend, or maybe you need a good cry, or maybe you need to get some fresh air. Like when you do that, you will find that your body will start communicating with you again, not just with hunger and fullness cues, but also with just your inner needs and what you need
Yeah.
to be, to feel well, to feel happy.
I think that's so true. We it's not a light switch, right? Like you don't just turn it on and then, oh, I get it now. Like it's a long process
Yes,
and it requires practice and grace.
a lot of grace, and I think that's the biggest thing for most of us is that when we can't get it perfect the first time, we beat ourselves up or convince ourselves that this is not for us and
Right.
that we can't do it. And we talk ourselves out of doing things that, while hard, are worthwhile.
100%. And I love that message. And I think that that is so true. It is so, we all want to be perfect. We all want to be good at everything. But the reality is life is just practice. Like every day is practice. I mean, that's it. And so I think that what a story and an inspiration it is. And I'm so glad that you found your calling and your purpose, because it's amazing as coaches when we can relate to our clients on a true level, right? Like I more than just like, I think back to when I was a fitness coach, right? And it took so much discipline, but that discipline came easy for me and it was natural. So it was just like, we'll just do this. Well, I don't understand, until all of a sudden, like my whole world was turned upside down and I had this 5 pound crying thing that I couldn't leave anywhere. Like, oh, oh, this is why you just eat cookies for dinner. I get it now, because right? Because you want to pull your hair out. Like, and then it brings us back to being more empathetic and more of the general population where we can actually relate. And I think, in honesty, I think it makes us better coaches.
Yeah, definitely. And I experienced that because when I was deep in my disordered eating, tracking every morsel of food, weighing every morsel of food, and I had clients who said, I can't do it. It takes too much time. It's too hard. I forget. I would always think, I would never say it, but I would always think, like, how do you not have 5 minutes? Like,
Right.
it just takes 5 minutes. Now that I've been away from it, it didn't just take 5 minutes. Maybe the 5 minutes was the actual logging, but there's planning, there's so much. When you're micromanaging your food, it's like another full time job.
Yeah.
And
And like,
so,
how much more energy and brain power and capacity do you have now that that's out of your life?
oh, I feel like I can pursue projects in my business because
Yeah.
I have probably hours a day. And I think you can't really measure energy. You can measure the time, but I'm sure. I mean, I feel so free and liberated. And I never thought I would get to the point where I am now, where I don't think about food very much in advance. I start thinking about food when I start getting hungry.
Yeah.
And I'm asking myself, oh, what do I want? Versus before, I was planning in advance for, like, my husband and I do a weekly lunch date where we go out to eat. We don't go out to eat much to save money, time, and just in
Yeah.
general, but that's our, like, special date. And we take turns picking the place. I would have a month of places I wanted to go to planned out in advance. Now our lunch date comes and he's like, where do you want to go? And I'm like, I don't know. What do I feel like? And I decide in the moment if we're out and about, and then we just drive to the place. Before, I would weigh the pros and cons. I would look up the menu and see if there was something I could eat, something that would fit my macros and my calories. And it was like this whole ordeal.
Yeah.
And now it's like half the time when he asks me, I don't even know. And the same thing with, like, thinking about food throughout the day. I only really think about it when I'm starting to get hungry. And so that has been fantastic. There's a lot less stress involved with going out to eat, with eating, going to places where I won't know what they serve. Now that's exciting. That's part of the
Yeah.
fun of, like, going to a friend's house and what are they going to make? you know? Like,
Yes.
I mean, it's just been so liberating, and it's given me the time and energy to devote myself to my passion instead
Yes.
of spending all that time, controlling so much of my trying to control, because ultimately at the end of the day nature wins. Like, you can't
Right.
control everything forever.
I love it. What a story it is. Like I said, I wish everybody could get to that place. I wish we could make diet culture disappear and that we could make women realize that it's okay to take up space in this world. It's okay if your belly is soft. Everybody has cellulite. Like, it's all okay. Um I love your message. I love your story. Tell everybody where they can find you online or your resources. How do they follow you, get in touch, learn more?
So I am most active on Instagram, and my handle is at Yesenia Godoy. So Yesegodoy. But I am also on Facebook. I also have a page there by the same name, and I would love to connect. I love chatting about all things intuitive eating and body image.
Yes, and I will drop links in the chat, or the show notes, whatever it's called. I don't know. Well, I'll drop links there. And amazing. Thank you so much for coming on and telling your story and chatting today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right. We will see you guys back here next week. Thank you so much for jumping into today's conversation. We truly appreciate having you here on this journey with us. Don't forget, if you liked today's episode and the conversation, go ahead and like this episode and leave us a review. If you didn't love it, that's okay. Don't worry about leaving anything.